Where did Abby go? You're going to call the meeting to order, right? I said, you can call the meeting to order. Well, we have 2 more minutes. There's chairs for you.
Oh, that's right. This might be quick.
I know. What? Oh. Great. Yep.
Excellent.
We're not live yet, though, right? Okay. Some dancing around. I know, I feel like I'm repeated myself how many times, but
It's okay.
we'll do it for the audience.
Yeah, we will.
We'll see.
And I'll put this on there.
Have to do this.
Kingdom access platform.
Yep.
So keep it all that stuff.
Yep. Someone's going to join that.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. So I'm going to, as chair, open up this meeting. This is the informational meeting of the St. Johnsbury School District. We have a presentation on our updated budget. We'll take any questions. We do have some participants online. We have members of the school board here as well. And with that, we'll get started.
Good evening. My name is Karen Conroy, and I'm the superintendent for St. Johnsbury School District, and I welcome everyone here this evening. This is a required informational meeting as part of our revote, and I will be sharing a little bit of information about our decisions on the revote and our new budget, and also allow an opportunity for anyone in the community to ask any questions that they may have as we move forward for our vote next Tuesday, April 9th. When you came in, I just want to point out, I'm going to be referencing what's called our FY25 budget snapshot. So there is a handout that you're more than welcome to take. There's also annual reports. Our strategic plan is up there, and some town reports as well, if you'd like to have a copy. And I reference the town report because it has line-by-line details about our budget in that document. Why we are here is our budget did not pass. And actually, it was a common theme throughout the state. As of April 3rd, 78 budgets were approved, but 32 budgets were defeated. There's still a few school districts that have postponed or they're voting a little bit later in the year. But our budget actual results were very close. We had 606 votes back on March 5th that were in favor of our budget and 657 votes against. So from that unfavorable vote, we pulled together the school board and our administrative leadership team and discussed potential savings. What we were able to do is come up with reductions of $506,281. So the new proposed budget that we will put in front of the community next Tuesday is $29,780,298. And when we looked at this reduction in our budget, we kept in mind our strategic plan. And there are some new positions that have been added that we feel is very necessary strategically as we move forward. The areas that we were able to reduce our budget was related to a purchase of a multifunction school activity bus. We're currently leasing one that is saving us funding on our transportation. We would continue to lease that bus. We also just completed our negotiations, and we were able to, based on those numbers that we finalized on negotiations and the elimination of one non-teaching full-time equivalent person, we were able to reduce the budget there, $296,000. And then we also had more information in March where we didn't have announced tuitions from all of our independent schools when we first presented this budget. So based on announced tuitions from our high schools and also some special education changes that had taken place, we feel this is a more accurate reflection of the needs of the school district, specifically around high school students. So with this reduction, our spending per pupil is now been reduced to $13,206 from the $13,478. In order to calculate the school district tax rate, it's divided by the dollar yield, which was set in the tax commissioner's letter in December and modified once along the way. This number will still change, and we probably won't see a real number until probably May or June after the legislative session is completed. But our current school district tax rate was reduced to $1.34. And if you did the math, it was actually $1.35, but the state is giving us a discount of 1 cent because we were negatively impacted by the new Act 127, which is the new funding formula for the state of Vermont. So if we look at school district tax rates, there are a number of contributing factors. At $1.34, it's actually lower than it was in FY21 and FY22, but we did have increases in our school district budget. And a lot of this has to do with what a lot of folks are seeing related to inflation. We had a significant increase, over 16% increase in our health care, which tallies to about $890,000 of this budget increase. We also have negotiated contracts, so there was new money for teachers and new money for paraprofessionals and staff. We've had increased capital needs that were not allowable to be repaired under federal ESSER funds. For example, the state of Vermont is no longer allowing purchases of fluorescent lights. So now we need to do some upgrades to all of our lighting, which is like $120,000 for the school district to use LED lights, is just one example. And we are seeing reductions in federal title funds and also ESSER grant funding as well. This is the end of those fundings. So although our tax rate is a little bit lower than it was in FY21, FY22, we did have an increase from last year. And when we look at those expenditures as a total budget, 43% of our expenditures are related to high school students and the tuition we're paying for the high school students in our community. As many of you know, We don't have a public school, so that we have choice for our high school students. And the cost to tuition high school students is $12.8 million, $12.9 million, which is 43% of our budget. 44% of our budget, the lower section in green, is related to salaries and benefits, and that we have estimated for next year at $13 million. And then probably the next, one of the next highest contributors around contracted services really had to do to some deferred maintenance. We moved from a zero budget last year and added, I think it was $232,000 in our budget this year. Pretty much a level budget for our supplies, technology, but we did see an increase also in transportation. And transportation is 4% of our budget. To break it down a little further, you can see how it's broken down based on, if we look at the green section where salaries and benefits, that 13.1 million, 7.2 million of that is for regular instruction. So this is direct instruction for salaries and benefits of employees. 3.1 million of that is related to special education. So where students required by an IEP, an individual education plan, 3.1 million is to support those students with those specific needs. 9% is operations, 6% administration, and 6% for the district is the breakdown. For tuition, and we mentioned high school tuition, it also includes special education tuition, which is out of district placements. So currently, 63% of high school for regular education is 8.1 million for high school students, and the 4.5 is for students that are attending either like a therapeutic program, a day program, or a residential placement out of the district, and that is 4.5 million. The pre-K portion is just 2% of the tuition. It's about $270,000. We pay for 70 students in the community. We have 3 pre-K programs in our school, but we also pay tuition for 10 hours a week for students that are attending private daycares in the community. And that is a requirement as part of the universal pre-K program. If we look down at the miscellaneous category, I have contracted services, supplies, and other. Those items contribute 2.6 million of the budget. Our supply line, which is about 781,000, 400,000 of that approximately is just for supplies for the plant operations. Technology and the bond is 406,000. And as I mentioned before, contracted services, like our lighting project of 120,000 is in here. We have some renovations for an area of our building that our after school and summer program is using that needs renovations, and we're also looking at $100,000 in the budget to upgrade the safety and security of our classrooms and classroom locks. And then in transportation, again, we're seeing an increase in our transportation costs. Regular ed, to and from school is about 669,000, and the cost to transport students to out-of-district placements, so those day programs, those therapeutic day programs, is about 406,000, the 34% of the budget, and field trips is estimated at about 120,000. So that's kind of in real summary. As I mentioned, you could look in the town report. It has many of the details line by line showing you where what the costs are and how they're separated by department. But this is kind of a summary of what this $29 million budget pays for. What I also think is important to acknowledge is where the money comes from. Because I think quite often people see a price tag of 29 million and they're thinking that's what we're paying. But they forget that this is a state-funded system. And the money is distributed equally throughout the state, and it's based on fair market value of your properties, which is a whole nother conversation. But if you look at the 29 million, you can kind of break it down, and these are estimates based on the information that we have available today. But out of that 29.78 million, the homeowners, the property owners in St. Johnsbury are anticipated to pay 4.1 million of that cost. If you're a non-homestead, so it could be like a camp owner or a business owner, they would be paying 5.7 million of this budget. And then the remaining 9.8 was the is really what St. Johnsbury pays, but the remaining balance would be paid by either revenues that are coming in, state revenues of 5.2 million, and then 14.8 million from the state education fund. And this comes from other communities that have higher property values. Again, it's based on the grand list and the fair market value of your homes in your community. And when we look at the cost in our spending per pupil estimated for FY25, that 29 million, you subtract the revenues, and then you divide it by what's called weighted pupils. And in Vermont in the past, for many, many years, they've been called equalized pupils, but now they call them long-term weighted ADMs. And what that basically is, under Act 127, they realize that there's additional costs for certain categories of students. They realize that students that are in middle school or in high school, it costs more to educate them. They realize English language learners, it costs more to be able to help them succeed. And they also realize that some schools, small schools, or schools that are quite a distance from anything, sparsity they refer to, and the population, it costs more. And the one that's impacting the community here in St. Johnsbury, we're getting weighting because of our economically deprived background weights, it's called. And it's those that qualify for federal free and reduced funding. And so we have about 1,003 students currently in our school system, but with the weightings, it shows that we have 1,865 students. So if we take that and divide it by the total budget less revenues, our spending per pupil calculates to $13,206. Now, this is not the tuition rate at all. It's how the state calculates what it's going to cost for your taxes. How do they equalize it throughout the state? This is our cost per pupil. And we currently are below the state average. If you looked at our comparisons now, and I anticipate next year when we actually get data from other schools, that will still be right around the state average. And so some of our just budget highlights and information, we do serve over 1,000 students. I like to point that out because sometimes they think this budget is specifically for the school, but it also is supporting pre-K students, and it's also supporting our high school students and students attending therapeutic programs. Again, there's 70 students that we currently have estimated that are attending private programs in the community. We do have a pre-K through 8 school here serving 637 students currently, and we're tuitioning high school students. There's 366 students. A couple other notes around, we've had to increase mental health and behavioral services based on students' needs. And really based on our strategic plan, we've really tried re-engaging students through outdoor education and outdoor learning. And I do think that there are many messages coming from the state that are indicating that we're in deep trouble. But I do want to point out that I think the St. Johnsbury School District is actually very fortunate, because you'll hear a lot of information about high costs, way above the per pupil spending. You'll hear about enrollments, small schools, micro schools they talk about. But I'd just like to point out some really, I think, positives. And I recently went to a legislative session and spoke on behalf of the St. Johnsbury School District to share with our decision makers on how we're moving forward, because it's not the same picture that we're painting here in this community. I think we're very, very fortunate. And just to point some of those areas out, is that we have a much newer facility. This community made some tough decisions back over 20 years ago to consolidate many schools. Those are some of the conversations that they're having statewide. You'll hear them reference Act 46. That was consolidation of schools. We've already done that. For the deferred maintenance that we do have, we actually have $3 million, over $3 million set aside for projects for this summer that are going to address the deferred maintenance within that short 20 years of time that we're going to address with these federal funds. It includes roofs, it includes concrete, it has a lot of work on our grounds from the playgrounds to the ball field, dealing with drainage, parking lots. There's so many things that we're able to do with this funding. And so we're looking forward to even beefing up our facility even more. We have a 5-year strategic plan driving many of our decisions focused on students and students' learning. This is not available in all schools. It's something that the school board and the community and the school worked hard to develop, and it was a pleasure coming into this district last year, having it all laid out on this is where we're heading in the next 5 years. Our elementary school enrollment is strong. There was a decline during COVID. You could see how students, our parents chose to homeschool their students, but that's back up, and we have very strong enrollments. You'll hear a lot from the state level about declining enrollments. We're not seeing that here. Our class sizes and our classroom student to staff ratios are well above state averages. Actually, our class student to staff ratios are at the national level. Again, I think it's from having we're considered a very large school, and we're able to utilize staff more efficiently. We have a highly recognized after-school and summer programming. This is all grant funded. Brian Duff, who's here this evening, works very, very hard to ensure that we continue offering these programs and writes those grants so that it's not coming out of the local taxpayers, but we serve the local community. Anyone attending any of those independent schools can join at no cost, and we provide that for this community. Again, this is not something common in all schools. We're able to attract and retain, not retail, retain professional staff. I think we're very fortunate that we live in an area that folks can easily hop on the interstate and get to us quickly. And we're trying to do a better job at recruiting, and we want to make sure we're retaining those the staff that we do have. Our cost per pupil is below the state average. Again, I think it's something very important. Yes, we have cost increase, but everything has had cost increase. I think that we've done a very good job at looking at how we have the least impact on our community related to the decisions that we made. But some of these decisions, and I think Abby wanted to speak to them around our strategic plan, are critical for the success of our students, and they're making progress. We have great partnerships with our independent schools for our high school students. There's a lot of conversation about independent schools and should they be a part of the educational system. 73% of our students, our high school students, attend St. Johnsbury Academy. We have such an opportunity here for these students, and I feel very fortunate that we have a great working relationship with the Academy and other independent schools and other public schools for the success of our students. And I have shared that with them at a state level because I think it's important that, you know, we don't have a public school and we continue to work to support our students attending other area schools. And I think we have a really great cost-effective way of doing that. And that's reflective on that cost per pupil. That includes our high school students. It's just not the school cost, but it includes high schools attending other schools, other independent private schools. And again, we're below the state average. So I think we're doing a great job at that. And I don't know if you want to.
I wanted to, as we went and discussed this with folks in our community, we were asked sort of what, you know, you laid out some different options for us in our town plan, or in the school report. And one of them was the elimination of the ESSER positions. And so we took a really hard look at that. And what it came down for us was the need to invest in our middle school. We knew we had room for growth, and those positions were were designed to allow us a schedule that supports our middle school students, and that was really difficult without these positions. We're not going to give the best return on investments to our students and our community if we're not able to send students to high schools and thrive. And we know there's room for growth, and we're going to continue to do that. But it was really important for us to recognize what that investment really entailed. And I think Karen did a really good job of talking about the importance of our relationship with our independent schools. And that follows, that's sort of from my, on a micro and a macro level, right? Small and big. We have students we send up there, and we work with caseworkers to support them so they can be successful. And then what kind of larger conversations are we having so that we are sending students to the academy who are an LI, who are ready to thrive and take advantage of the tech center and some of the curriculums that are available to them. That was it. Thank you, Karen, for sharing the stage with me. And at this point, we can take, I'll act as a little bit of a moderator just for this portion of it. Are there any questions that we have from anyone in the building tonight? Okay, I appreciate it. I think we did open up, we had 3 previous forums. It'd be good to mention 4 members of the public, 4. We did 2 in person and 1 Zoom. And so I think that was able to really create a lot of community conversations before I think we got to this evening. Is there anyone online that has a question for us this evening? Okay, just going to give that a quick pregnant pause. Okay, so hearing that, and for the good of the order, it is now 6:26, and I'm going to go ahead and close the informational meeting of the St. Johnsbury School District. Thank you very much for anyone who attended.
Thank you. I could have shared this graph.
It's okay. It's going to get more complicated.
Yeah, take a bunch of cookies with you. Thank you. Thank you, Jacob.